Get your hands off my daughter. My scream shattered the quiet Saturday morning as I bolted out the front door. But I was too late. My 7-year-old daughter, Emma, blind since birth, was tied to the massive oak tree in our front yard like a criminal. And the woman holding the rope, Patricia Vance, the HOA president and self-declared queen of this so-called perfect neighborhood, community standards. She hissed, yanking the knot tight as my daughter whimpered in terror. Emma's white cane, her lifeline to the world, lay shattered on the sidewalk. That was the moment something inside me snapped. She didn't know who I was, not yet, but she was about to find out that she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Because I'm not just a father, I'm FBI. And she just declared war on the wrong man. The morning had started out just like any other quiet.com, filled with the sweet scent of blooming jasmine and the distant hum of lawnmowers in Willowbrook Estates. I had just poured my first cup of coffee, enjoying the rare peace, when a gut-wrenching sound tore through the air, a scream, high-pitched, frantic. Emma.I dropped the mug. Porcelain exploded across the kitchen floor as I bolted for the front door, heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. And there she was, my little girl, my blind, brilliant, fiercely brave, 7-year-old daughter, tied to a tree like some kind of criminal. The ropes were thick, yellow, and cruelly tight. Her arms stretched awkwardly around the massive oak, the bark digging into her skin. She was trembling, her cheeks wet with tears, her body stiffed with terror. And the woman responsible stood smugly beside her. Patricia Vance, HOA president, steel gray hair curled around her bony shoulders like barbed wire. Eyes the color of winter. Ice. A permanent sneer carved into her pale face. This little menace needs to learn what community standards mean. She spat, yanking the final knot tight with terrifying precision. She's been disrupting the harmony of this neighborhood for far too long. My vision blurred with rage. Emma's Kandawan, I spent months saving up for, lay broken on the sidewalk. Snapped in half, like it meant nothing. Like she meant nothing. Emma whimpered, please. I was just playing hopscotch like Daddy taught me. I stayed close. I wasn't bothering anyone. And then Patricia said the words that lit a fire inside me I didn't know I had. Be quiet, you defective little monster. My fists clenched. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to protect her. But I couldn't rush in, not yet. Not without a plan. Not without triggering more trauma. She had no idea what she'd just done. This wasn't just cruelty, this was war. Patricia's grip on the rope tightened as she sneered down at my daughter like she was some kind of wild animal. Her lips curled with disgust, and her voice dripped with venom. Your clumsy stumbling, that hideous tapping cane, your constant muttering, you are single-handedly ruining the peace of this premium neighborhood. Maybe 3 hours tied up out here will teach you to stay inside, where broken little things belong. Emma's small head jerked violently as Patricia yanked the rope again, her skull cracking against the tree bark with a sickening thud. She let out a soft cry, and I saw a thin trickle of blood forming near her hairline. My whole body went cold. I'd spent over 2 decades as an FBI agent, specializing in child exploitation and abuse cases. I had witnessed the darkest parts of humanity, the kind of cruelty that haunts you long after you've closed the file. But this, seeing my daughter bound and brutalized in broad daylight by a deranged neighbor, nothing in my career could have prepared me for the firestorm that erupted in my chest. Untie her, I barked, stepping forward slowly, every muscle in my body coiled like a spring. Or, I swear to God, I will have you arrested within the hour for aggravated assault on a disabled minor. Patricia didn't flinch. In fact, she laughed. A cold, humorless sound that echoed through the yard like a gunshot. Go ahead and call them, she hissed. The HOA board backs me 100%. We've been working for months to eliminate the what did you call her? Disabled disruptions. Willowbrook Estates is for normal, functional families, not genetic defects. Asterisk, my fists trembled at my sides. This wasn't random cruelty. This was targeted, methodical. She wasn't just attacking Emma, was executing a campaign, and she was proud of it. We've already gotten rid of 4 other families, she said, chest puffed with pride. The autistic boy, the wheelchair girl, the deaf twins, they all left. You'll be next. As she bragged about her so-called victories, I stepped toward Emma, my hands shaking as I loosened the knot around her wrists. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. I was just playing, Daddy, she whispered, voice ragged with terror. I was careful. I didn't break anything. Why does she hate me? I didn't have an answer. But I had a promise. She would never feel this fear again. I carried Emma inside, her tiny body trembling in my arms, her face buried in my chest. Every step I took was heavy with rage and heartbreak. She clutched at my shirt like a lifeline, her sobs muffled but rocking from a place so deep it shattered something inside me. We reached the living room, and I gently set her down on the couch, wrapping her in her favorite soft pink blanket, the one covered in tiny yellow stars. She curled into it, like she was trying to disappear. Her voice, when it finally broke through the silence, was hoarse and broken. Daddy, what did I do that was so bad? I dropped to my knees beside her. Nothing, baby, you did nothing wrong. Was just practicing like you taught me. Counting my steps, staying close. I didn't even leave the yard. I was being so good. Why did she tie me up? Tears streamed down her cheeks again. She broke my cane, Daddy, the one you got me. It made me feel brave. I reached up and wiped the tears away, though they kept coming. She called me defective. She said I didn't belong here. The words stabbed through me like knives. Emma had spent weeks memorizing the layout of our yard, 15 steps from the porch to the tree. 10 more to the flower bed she loved. Her entire world had been carefully mapped out with precision, care, and courage. And that woman had reduced it all to ashes in a single moment. Listen to me, I said, my voice firm now. You are not defective. You are not broken. You are the bravest, most incredible person I've ever known. That woman, she's the one who's broken, not you. Emma sniffled, nodding slightly. I tucked the blanket tighter around her and kissed her forehead, but while I soothed her, my mind was anything but calm. This wasn't going to end here. She had terrorized the wrong child and underestimated the wrong father, she thought. I was just another overwhelmed parent. She had no idea that I had access to something far more powerful than HOA bylaws. I had federal clearance, and I was going to use every tool in my arsenal to destroy her. Once Emma drifted into a fitful sleep, still wrapped in her blanket, I stepped into my home office and closed the door behind me. I took a deep breath and stared at my reflection in the window. I wasn't just a father anymore. I was an agent preparing for war. My name is Marcus Chin, Special Agent, FBI Financial Crimes Division. 23 years in the Bureau. I've taken down child traffickers, embezzlers, organized criminal rings. But I had never been as personally invested in a case as I was now. I dialed the one person I trusted with everything. Sofia Rodriguez. Came the voice on the other end. Rodriguez, I said, trying to keep my voice level. Someone tied my blind 7-year-old daughter to a tree today. In our front yard. Silence then. Jesus Christ, Marcus, you serious? Dead serious. I need a full-scale investigation. Discreet but aggressive. Start with the HOA President Patricia Vance. Pull everything. Bank records, real estate, transactions, community fund transfers. I want her life unwrapped like a Christmas present. On it, sending authorization forms to your bureau email now. I ended the call and sat back, staring at the framed photo of Emma on my desk. One where she's holding her cane and grinning after completing her first independent walk to the mailbox. That photo had been taken just a week before we moved into this nightmare of a neighborhood. Now, her cane was broken, her confidence shaken, her innocence shattered, and Patricia Vance. She was still out there, probably smug and satisfied, thinking she'd handled the problem. Within hours, Rodriguez and I had access to Willowbrook Estates' internal HOA records. And what we uncovered wasn't just shocking, it was monstrous. Patricia had been embezzling money from community funds for years, over $70,000 rerouted into administrative expenses and beautification projects. most of which didn't exist. But that wasn't the worst part. There was a pattern. Every family she forced out had one thing in common: a child with a disability. This wasn't just fraud, it was a systematic campaign of hate, and now, with my daughter as her latest victim, I was going to tear her world apart. Not out of vengeance, out of justice. As Rodriguez and I dug deeper, the pattern became undeniable and horrifying. Patricia Vance hadn't just bullied my daughter. She had led a coordinated, multi-year purge of families with disabled children from Willowbrook Estates. And she did it with surgical cruelty. We found case after case, painful, deliberate, and methodical. 8 months ago, the Williams family fled after Patricia lodged 17 formal noise complaints against their autistic son, Danny. His outdoor therapy sessions involved clapping and vocal cue his occupational therapist used to help him regulate. Patricia claimed they shattered the tranquility of the neighborhood. She called the therapist a menace. Eventually, they gave up. They sold their home at a loss and moved 3 states away. 6 months ago, the Martinez family vanished. Their teenage daughter Sophia had cerebral palsy and used a wheelchair ramp. Patricia documented every photo of their home, hosted aesthetic standards meetings, and insisted the ramp was destroying property values. Sophia stopped going outside entirely. Her mother wrote in an online forum that she cried every time someone mentioned the word neighborhood. Then came the Chin family, no relation to me, though we shared a surname. Their son Michael was blind, just like Emma. Patricia filed repeated complaints about his guide dog, calling it dangerous and unhygienic. She even claimed his cane was damaging the sidewalk. Eventually, she pushed a special accessibility assessment through the HOA border charge the family couldn't afford. They left within 6 weeks, and there was more. A 5-year-old with Down syndrome, who stopped speaking after repeated harassment. A girl with juvenile arthritis, whose family was cited for lawn maintenance when she couldn't help outside. Foster twins with ADHD, labeled as neighborhood threats. For simply being active, all gone, all forced out, and every single case bore Patricia's signature fingerprint: strategic pressure. Weaponized bylaws, emotional destruction. She didn't just dislike disabled children, she hunted them. Rodriguez's voice came through my speaker, grim and sharp. This isn't just a fraud case anymore, Marcus. This is a federal civil rights violation. We're talking hate crimes, conspiracy, abuse of authority. This woman's going away for a long time. I stared at the list of names, of broken families and children traumatized by one woman's campaign of hate. Emma would be her last victim, because now, the FBI was coming for her. In the weeks that followed the assault, Emma was no longer the same. She wouldn't go outside, not even to the porch. She jumped at sudden noises. The sound of Patricia's voice, drifting over from the neighbor's yard, sent her into panic attacks. Every night, she had nightmares, waking up crying, asking if she'd done something wrong. I assured her again and again, she had done nothing wrong. But words weren't enough. Not anymore. I needed to make sure Patricia Vance would never have the power to hurt another child again, so I began preparing my endgame. I filed a formal report with the U.S. Attorney's Office, coordinating with Rodriguez and our growing team. We compiled the evidence: financial crimes, civil rights violations, hate crimes, assault on a minor. Everything was airtight. Federal agents, legal counsel, disability rights advocates, even the media, they were all part of the strategy now. And then I issued the final move, a mandatory emergency HOA meeting. Every resident of Willowbrook Estates received a formal letter, legal language, sealed in government envelopes. No one could ignore it, not even Patricia. The subject line read, "Community Safety Announcement regarding federal criminal activity and civil rights violations." Rodriguez called me that night. "She's walking right into it." "Marcus." "Good," I said. "I want her to feel powerful until the very last second." Emma, who had overheard our conversation, tugged on my sleeve. Her voice was quiet, but steady. "Can I come to the meeting?" Hesitated. "Are you sure, sweetheart?" She nodded. "She tied me to that tree." I want to see her face when she learns what happens to people who hurt kids like me. I looked into my daughter's unbroken spirit and I saw not just courage, I saw justice. And it was time. The Willowbrook Community Center was packed that evening. Curious residents filled every seat, whispering nervously, their expressions clouded with confusion. The room buzzed with tension. After all, it wasn't every day the HOA called a mandatory emergency meeting, especially not one citing federal crimes. Patricia Vance walked in like royalty, wearing her signature beige suit and smug confidence. She strutted to the front table, flanked by her board loyalists Susan Mitchell, Harold Brennan, and David Kim. She looked around the room as if expecting applause, or perhaps another victory speech. She didn't know the game had changed. Emma sat beside me in the front row, her small hand gripping mine with quiet strength. She wore her favorite headband, the one with the little purple butterfly. She wanted to be brave, and tonight, she was. I stepped up to the podium. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice steady, calm, and sharp as a blade. "Tonight, we are addressing a public safety crisis that has been silently devastating our most vulnerable residents." Patricia's smirk faltered. 3 weeks ago, my 7-year-old daughter, Emma Chin, who was born blind, was physically assaulted and tied to a tree by an adult member of this community. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People turned to Patricia. She blinked, just once. This wasn't a prank. It wasn't a misunderstanding. This was an act of violence, a hate crime. I turned on the projector. Slide after slide appeared on the screen: financial records, embezzled HOA funds, altered invoices, fraudulent charges, all traced directly to Patricia Vance. Over $73,000 stolen from the community, I said flatly, laundered through false repair fees and administrative expenses. Patricia shot to her feet. "This is outrageous slander." I held up my badge. The room fell silent. "My name is Special Agent Marcus Chin, FBI Financial Crimes Division. Every transaction has been verified under federal investigative protocol." The color drained from her face. "But the fraud is only the beginning," I continued. "Over the past 3 years, Patricia Vance has orchestrated a systematic campaign of harassment targeting families with disabled children, intentionally driving them out of this neighborhood." Gasps became murmurs. People whispered names of families who had suddenly moved away. I showed emails, meeting notes, a message sent just days after Emma's assault. "Tree incident achieved perfect results. Father looks defeated. Blind girl will be gone in 30 days. The room turned against her, and Patricia finally realized this wasn't her meeting anymore. As the room sat frozen in stunned silence. I turned to Emma. "You don't have to," I began, but she was already rising to her feet. Her legs trembled slightly, but her voice was calm, clear, and unwavering. "My name is Emma Chin," she said, her small voice echoing through the quiet hall. "I'm 7 years old. I was born blind, but I can hear everything. I remember everything." Every eye in the room turned to her. Some people gasped, others lowered their heads in shame. Patricia stared, frozen. I heard Mrs. Vance say I was defective, that I made the neighborhood look ugly, that I should be locked away somewhere with other broken people. Emma's voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "I try really, really hard every day to be good. I count my steps so I don't bump into things. I use my cane so I can find my way without getting hurt. I memorize everything in our yard just so I can play like normal kids." She took a shaky breath, then said the words that shattered the room. "But she tied me to a tree. Because I'm blind." Dozens of people wiped tears from their eyes. A few gasped openly. The HOA board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Emma's final words brought the entire room to its knees. "I'm not broken, I'm just different. And being different doesn't mean I should be hurt, or scared, or hated. Different can be beautiful too." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even Patricia Vance, for all her icy arrogance, was trembling now. The facade cracked. Her mouth hung open, her eyes red and wide. "My daughter, my brave, beautiful, unstoppable daughter, had just demolished a legacy of hate with the pure strength of truth. Agent Rodriguez stepped forward with the arrest warrants. In hand, Patricia Vance, you are under arrest for wire fraud, mail fraud, conspiracy, assault on a disabled minor, and violation of federal civil rights. As the cuffs clicked into place, Emma sat down beside me and leaned her head on my shoulder. She's not the boss anymore, she whispered. Double quotes, no sweetheart, I said softly, she never was. The news spread fast. Patricia Vance, once the untouchable ruler of Willowbrook Estates, was led away in handcuffs and leg shackles. Her sobs echoing through the community center like a twisted parody of the terror she had inflicted on others. But justice didn't stop with her. Her inner circle, Susan Mitchell, Harold Brennan, and David Kim, were arrested moments later for aiding and abetting. Their faces, once smug and dismissive during HOA meetings, now looked hollow and defeated. That night, something remarkable happened. Neighbors who had once been silent found their voices. One by one, they stood up and spoke, sharing how they, too, had been intimidated, threatened, or shamed into silence. Mrs. Eleanor Johnson, our elderly neighbor, with kind eyes and a cane of her own, approached me with tears rolling down her cheeks. I saw her tie up Emma, she whispered. But she told me if I said a word, she'd get my son evicted. I've lived with that guilt every day. You're not guilty, I said gently. She is. The federal investigation that followed uncovered everything: financial fraud, civil rights violations, embezzlement, even attempts at witness intimidation. Patricia was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. She was also ordered to complete a disability awareness program and serve community hours in accessibility initiatives. But the most powerful justice came quietly, over time. 8 months later, on a warm spring morning, Emma was playing outside. Again, the same yard, the same oak tree, only now she wasn't afraid. She moved with confidence. Her new cane in hand, a wide smile on her face as she counted steps with practiced ease. Neighbors greeted her warmly, and even a few children joined in her counting game. She called to me from beneath the oak tree, "Daddy, look what I found." At the base of the tree was a small sapling, sprouting proudly beside the roots of its massive parent. Mrs. Rodriguez said this baby tree will grow up just as strong. Knelt beside her, touched the tender leaves, and smiled. "Just like you, sweetheart, stronger every single day." Every morning now, I watch Emma walk confidently to the bus stop, her steps measured, her spirit unshaken. She's not just navigating sidewalks, she's navigating a world that once tried to reject her. And doing it with grace. She speaks at schools, advocates at council meetings, even testified before the state legislature about inclusion and accessibility. People now see her not as a burden, but as a beacon. Patricia Vance thought tying my daughter to a tree would break her. Instead, she helped Emma grow roots deeper than anyone could have imagined. That old oak still stands tall in our yard, witness to both cruelty and courage. And beside it, the little sapling continues to grow, nourished by hope, resilience, and love. Emma taught this community. And maybe the world that different isn't broken. It's powerful, and sometimes the strongest. Justice doesn't come from punishment, but from healing, rising, and changing everything that came before.